All right, welcome YouTube. We got a great one for you here today. We're going to talk about the top 5 fishing spots for intake 2. So this is going to be a long video. Go get yourself something to eat, something to drink, settle in, and let's get into it. Intake 2 up here at Bishop Creek Canyon. All right, hopefully you have settled in with something to eat, something to drink. Let's start out by talking about some of the features of intake 2. The parking situation here is not ideal. There is not a lot of parking. You're looking at the only parking lot on this little reservoir is right here. This parking over here is for the campground that is located just to the south of this shot here. And I mean, that is a bonus. There is a campground located here with just a few sites. There's not a lot of space there, but pretty neat little spot. It's a loud campground. I mean, you're going to be dealing with people in the area all day, as it is right on one of the more busier reservoirs. But as far as the parking here, as long as you get there fairly early, you should be good. This lake only really has full access to about 3/4 of it. And why is that? Well, as you can see, there is like a road that runs along down in here. Now, you can't drive on this road. There's a gate just past this parking lot. And we will probably show some clips of that and give you an idea what this looks like. But there's a little gate here, and you can walk along this road here and make your way down toward some of the fishing spots. So this is open, believe it or not. Walking across this bridge is open. You can go all the way over to the Spillway and even beyond. Now you can see there is like a little road over here. This is a kind of an emergency road, but you can walk it. Now there are also some trails along here. Some of it's from animals and some of it is just from people. But most of this area is like a marshy, wooded, jacked up area, and not a lot of people will walk around in there. I have done it and made the made the mistake one time of walking through there with a pair of shorts on, and not only ended up waist deep in mud, but ended up getting nailed by mosquitoes. So if you want to fish this area in here, and we'll talk about that in the top 5 spots, you'll definitely want to tune into that particular section of the video. So pretty much there's only like real shoreline access is along here, over the spillway, and then part of here. But most of this is off limits to shore. You're really not going to be over here much. There's a little tiny area in here that can be fishable depending on water levels and such. But that's the overview. And it's not a very deep lake. I mean, they do dredge it. They just dredged it again. And they have to dredge this because it clogs up their equipment down here by the dam with sand. So they keep it pretty clean. And that's part of what this does is it traps sand that comes down out of the mountain and keeps it out of their generating plants. So it's pretty deep at times. I've seen it as shallow as about 6 feet deep through the whole thing, and as deep as 40 feet when they dredge it good. So, like I said, they just dredged it. So it's in good shape right now as of July 2022. So hopefully they'll keep that up. And but otherwise, it is a fairly shallow lake. And here's a bonus: you can float tube on this lake. No power boats. You can't launch your motor boat out here, but you can float tube. You can kayak it and you can raft it, just as long as it doesn't have a motor. I have seen people out here with electric motors and no real issues with that, but I don't really think you need that. It's pretty small, but this is a great little lake to float tube on. And they got a great little launching area right over here close to your car. So give it a shot. It's one of my favorite little spots to float tube over the years and can be quite fun. So let's get into it, guys. Welcome to the channel. Let's get into this top 5 for intake 2. I'm excited. We got a lot to talk about. Let's get into spot number 1. All right, let's get into it. Top 5 fishing spots. Now, these are not in any particular order, so don't look at it that way. These are just some of the better spots on intake 2 that we're going to talk about. So, spot number 1, right here at the boat ramp or launch ramp right next to the main parking area. You could see it right here, this spot right here. And I will connect the ADA fishing pier with it. They're pretty much in the same habitat. And why is this a good spot? Well, this is where they plant the fish. And if you, depending on when you show up to fish it, there's a strong possibility that the fish were planted here within a day or two of you arriving. So when they plant it, this is where they go in. And you could see with this satellite shot, there is a drop off in this area, and it's not deep. I wouldn't say this is like 10 feet deep or anything. It's more like 3 to 5 feet at the most, and some of these little pockets in here. And as we zoom out, you could see better where the real drop off to the lake is. But this little cove just has a great little habitat, and there are a ton of bugs in here, mainly because of this marshy situation you see right in here. And what happens is with all that bug, these fish get jumped, they get dropped off here, and they immediately find food, and they don't want to leave. So a lot of times after a plant, these fish will hang out here for extended periods of time, maybe 3, 4, 5 days after being planted. They're still there, and you could get into a crazy good bite. And this is a great place if you get there early. Obviously, there's only 1 or 2 spots here. You can fish from the deck here, or you could fish from the ramp itself. And there's every now and then, depending on water levels, there's a spot about right there that's decent. But yeah, I mean, if you get there early, you could get that spot. Last time I was out there, there was nobody there for 3 or 4 hours after my arrival. So definitely a spot worth fishing. And it's a great little area to try out. You don't have to cast very far here. I've seen people land fish with maybe a 5 to 10 foot cast here, and that's all you need: a split shot, maybe a mosquito hook on there, and a couple of gulp eggs or something. But pretty easy. And being that it is the plant point, it is always a good spot to try, especially when you arrive. When I get there early, you'll see me roll up, park my car, and immediately walk down to this spot and start throwing a spoon just to see what kind of activity is in there. I mean, if they just recently planted it, you're going to get fish on those first few casts for sure. And part of the benefit, another little fun fact, is the inlet to the lake is right here. You could actually see the silt from the inlet. And what happens, that inlet water gets in here and eddies here and maintains the water to be fairly cool even in the hotter months of the summer. And it gets to about 100 here at times in the middle of summer. It could get pretty hot. But generally, temps here run even in the middle of summer around middle 80s, maybe upper 80s. But with that cold water eddying around with the inlets over here, you have a good shot at the fish hanging out there after being planted. So that's why it is in the top 5, because there are a lot of good things going for it. And if nothing else, I mean, it's right here by the campground, and the parking lot is right there. I mean, you're looking at one of the shortest walks in the Eastern Sierra from your car to a fishing spot that there is. So what a great spot. All right, let's move on to spot number 2. So as you leave the parking lot, you can make your way down this road. You're going to go through a small gate right here and just walk down this short path. This is a really well-maintained road. I wouldn't say it's not ADA accessible. I would say it's just a little bit of a kind of a hard packed gravel road, real easy to walk, no hills. It's real flat. And you make your way down to this spot right here. Now you can see there's a little sand beach right there. Now there are some boulders you got to walk over to get to this spot, but once you're there, this is a great place to set up a chair, an umbrella, and you're into some really good shore access into the deeper water of this lake. And just historically speaking, this has been one of the more successful fishing spots on this little reservoir. And you would ask, why does it matter between right here and down here at the boat ramp? Like, what about all these spots? Well, in between, if we back out, in between here and down here, you could see there's a channel right there. Now, this is the natural riverbed. You could actually see right here, it runs about right there and moves out this way and heads out through the canyon. Now, obviously, you want to fish that. You do not want to miss out on that natural riverbed because that's where the flow of water is through this reservoir. And fish love that little current. But if you notice along in here, it's really shallow. And it's not that I've never seen people catch fish along in here. I have, but I've also float tubed through here, and it tends to be extremely shallow and mostly fishless. Every now and then, a fish will wander in through this shoreline, especially if it was just planted. Those fish might even cruise along through here before moving out into the deeper part of the lake. But this is one of the first spots that you get to that is genuinely um, probably one of the best fishing spots on the lake. I mean, I know I said there wasn't a particular order, and there's really not, but this is one of the best, and why it makes the top five, because here's the plant where the flow of water is going out, and obviously right in front of it, there's going to be heavy turbulence from those generators pushing and the pumps pushing the water through. So what happens is a lot of fish historically, and even to this day, I found that to be the case very recently. Since shooting this video, I was up there, and this area was still producing quite well. There's actually an old video of an old timer named Marlon Mead, who used to work for Berkeley Fishing. He shot a video here with his crappie jigs. You'll see How to Fish Crappie Jigs by Marlon Mead on YouTube. Entertaining little video, old school video, but that was shot right here on this shoreline. And that's why, because the fish are really stacked up in here at times. It's a great spot. You can kind of see where that shoreline fades out into the depths of this lake. And it's just a great little shoreline to get into that access. Before that, along this shore, it's quite difficult. There's really a lot of bushes here, and casting your back cast is going to get stuck in trees. It's just not a really good spot. There is a little bit of a drop off close to shore right here, and you're in the main channel. You could see it right there, and you're in the main channel. But this spot right here is right where it opens up into the deep pool right before the generator, and is just always a very productive place to fish. Spoons, crappie jigs, great place to learn to use those. And if you're an experienced fisherman with those lures and jigs, this is a great spot to try it, and you'll be very, very happy you did. So that's why it makes my top five fishing spots, because it is just one of the premier spots on the lake for habitat, drop off, access, and just overall historical good fishing. All right, let's move on to number three. So number three is the Spillway. And how do we get to the Spillway? Well, leaving that trail that you take going down from the parking lot, you're going to go around this tree across here, and you're going to go across this bridge. And we'll put a little clip above right here. We'll drop a clip of what that bridge looks like. It's pretty sketchy, but they've rebuilt it. It's a lot more stable than it used to be. It used to be this rickety, rusty old thing that would move when you walked on it. But it's pretty stable now, and it's purpose built for foot traffic, and it's real stable. Once you get to the other side, there's a little bit of a drop off right here, little cement stair area. It's not an official stairway, but it is like a little ledged out cement area. A little bit scary. We'll put a little clip of that right here for you. Okay, so once you get over here, you're on the Spillway. This is one of the best spots, if not the best spot to fish in Bishop Creek Canyon. That includes all of the lakes, North Lake, South Lake. It's just a spectacular spot with a great backdrop. You get this awesome view of the Sierra from right here, and access to deep water. Now, you could barely make it out with this satellite shot, but there's a shelf that runs right there. You can barely see it. And this is all a little bit shallower water, but that's all shallow. And right here, there's a little V right here that pinnacles right there. Um, this little cove is one of my favorite spots to cast a spoon because you can get to the drop off out here from shore really, really easy. Now, when they had a huge brown trout population, this shelf was a favorite area. These brown trout would just hang out on that shelf and be really easy to catch with a spoon or a jig right through there. But now that it's 99% stock trout, rainbow trout, not as much activity on that shelf right now. But that doesn't mean that the fish won't hang out there. It's still not a good spot. This is one of the best spots too because it's a great place for families and kids because this area is generally always dry. And we'll throw a little drone shot, but this area right here is just literally like a long cement bench that you can sit on. You don't need to bring your Walmart chair and your whole setup out here. You can just use this wall to sit on and fish from it. I have seen people bring on like a little seat cushion, like one of those stadium seat cushions to sit here, make it a little more comfortable instead of sitting on cement. But you don't need a rod holder. You don't need anything because you can rest your rod right there on that spillway wall, and it's just a great spot. Fishing here tends to be the best on the lake overall, and that's just because of where it is and access to the deeper water of this lake and the flow, which generally there's always a flow going out. Now, right now, as of today, they've grooved out this little channel right here in the corner where the red is, and that's where the water is spilling out. But in heavier times, it can go over here. Just this whole area is spilling, and in really bad times, it could flood out through here and go down this channel. I've only seen it flood here maybe once or twice in 20 plus years, so it isn't too high of an occurrence. You really don't have to worry about that happening unless there's just like a major flash flood or a huge spring runoff or something like that. But outside of that, it generally will only creep out of this, just a trickle out of here. They do run a bypass right there where the water comes through the pump and then goes out right there. So this water is pretty stable, but this spot, man, I'm telling you, is just a great spot. It's where I learned how to fish with spoons, and it's just a very easy place to catch fish here on Intake 2. So that's why it makes my top fishing spots at number 3. And like I said, no particular order, but if I had to pick a favorite spot, this is my favorite. It's just a great place to watch the sunset and go fishing in a late afternoon. Doesn't matter what time of year, but if you come out here in the fall, you may have this to yourself, and it is just a great spot to hang out and cast a line. So that's why it makes my top spots. All right, let's move. All right, on to number 4, and not too far from the spillway. In fact, you need to walk across the spillway to get to this spot. It's actually the best way to get to it. Is the pipe. It's called the pipe because it's basically a bypass pipe for Bishop Creek to help them regulate the flows, and it dumps out right here. You could see a little bit of that right here, and we'll put a video overlay right here to show you what that looks like in real time, both from drone and on shore. Historically, this is the spot I think I did like 15 years in a row coming up here to the opener, man, just every year. And people would literally run to this spot and try to nab it up. At times I was here fishing at midnight and there's people out here. It's just a wild spot over the years. I've actually seen people fighting right here that they tangled lines and a big old fist fight broke out. So it gets pretty wild there in the old days, but nowadays much more quiet. Fishing action is a lot less than what it used to be here, and especially without alpers and other big plants going in here. There's just nowhere near the way it was, but it's still a great spot to fish. And the habitat here is very interesting because you have a drop off. Now you can see the hole right here. Even when they dredge it out and things begin to fill up, this spot remains a nice little divot in the lake bottom, and big trout tend to hang out here. Now, a lot of fish will hang out right here in the current of the pipe, but what happens is this pipe is high pressure and the flow tends to push out this way. So even though, it could come out any way it wants to, you would think, but generally speaking, the flow just kind of hangs out here and creates like an eddy right here. And that's why you get this divot in the sand. And it's a great spot. Now, access is a little tough. You have a spot right here on the pipe. Then there's a little shoreline that's been cut out. But what I recommend is if you have a set of waders, to walk out right in here and be careful because it drops off. You just want to walk out about, a couple feet knee deep and then start casting. But this has been one of those spots that you do need waders. There's not a lot of shore access along in here. In fact, there's none right in here. But if you do have a set of waders, you can get out here and throw some jigs, spoons, bubble fly, cast, fly rod, whatever you want to do. You could do it from right there, and it's a great spot to try to get in there. So I like to try it with spoons and jigs. It's just one of my favorite spots to cast. But with that pipe just blowing water in here. Now, there's not a lot of food coming out of that pipe, but the fish love that current, especially in the summer. They tend to hang out over here in the cooler water. So it's just a great spot as a whole. Any time of year, always good fishing there because of that current. And that's why it makes one of my top 5 spots. So number 4 is the pipe. All right, last but not least, number 5 is the inlet. The main inlet to this lake, the middle fork of Bishop Creek, comes right by the campground here and flows into this little reservoir called Intake 2. Now, it enters the lake as kind of a braided stream. You can see the multiple inlets here. And in the spring, all of these are flowing. Every one of these is flowing. It's just a roaring little area. But in general, most of the time of year, you can see the main inlet here is the one that's flowing. Usually by mid-late summer, it's down to just one inlet. But this is a great spot. Now, generally, not a shore fishing spot, but definitely float tube and a wader spot. The reason why you need waders here is because you do need to access through here, and it could get real muddy and real nasty in here, and it's just a good idea to have waders on. Not to mention, there are millions of mosquitoes in these bushes, and you will get chewed alive if you're just wearing a pair of shorts. So put on some waders or flow tube out. Not a place that you want to drag your whole family over to, but if you're hardcore fisherman, sportsman, this is a great spot to come and try. Standing on one of these points with a pair of waders on, casting into this, you are likely to catch quite a few fish. In the past is one of the spots that you would see some really nice ones caught. But I like to flow tube this lake a lot, and flow tubing here out in front of this is definitely a recipe for success. You will catch a lot of fish here. The only downside is, like I said, you can wet weight it if you really want to. And as I was saying earlier, I did it once and I will never do that again. It is really ugly in here. There are some mud holes in here where you can drop, even with waders on, you could be up to your chest in mud. So just be very careful about where you're stepping and to fish it. But because of the constant cold water and the fish plants going in right here, a lot of those stock trout will just end up hanging out right here and never leave. There's no reason for them to. This is a natural inlet. So there are mosquitoes, bugs, and all kinds of stuff coming in right here that they will eat all day long. So it's a great spot. It is definitely going to make the top 5. And I highly recommend you put it on the list, especially if you're fishing with a tube. So that's why it makes the top 5. All right, guys, that's going to be it. And stay tuned for the wrap up. So that's it from Intake 2 and the top 5 fishing spots. Hopefully you guys enjoyed these type of videos. We're going to be putting out more of these all throughout the Eastern Sierra, Western Sierra, Southern California, and even some out-of-state places. So the only way to catch it is to hit that subscribe button. If you have more questions or you just want more details in general about these places, some bait and lure recommendations, go over to Patreon, hit that link below. It's just $5 and it really helps the channel out. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.